For our milestone 1, we have 55 aliens grids animating synchronously with movement. They all animate together as they move one step ahead. As they hit the edge of the screen, the grid moves down and changes its horizontal direction. Here we have used a sprite box for the grid of aliens to change the direction. As the sprite box hits the edge of the screen, the grid and sprites change the direction and move down. This will be used in future for the collision, but we'll have to use some different code. We are creating a screen of 896 to 1024 with black background, and we are having 3 different types of aliens: the squid, crab, and the octopus. The sprites or the game objects are animating and they move through a cycle of 2 images using the animation class. All the animation takes place at 1 second altogether for the 55 aliens. Here we have all the managers for the texture, image, sprite box, sprite batch manager, the timer manager which holds the timer events. These are the animation events. The proxy manager and the game object manager. The timer manager has been modified to work with the sprite box movement also. We are adding all the texture, image, sprites and sprite box here. Here we create the animation for crab, octopus and squid, and we add 2 images for each of the animation. When we go in this method, we fill the animation with 2 images. It has image holder. These are pointed to both these images. When we execute this, when we execute an event in the timer manager, when we execute these events in the timer manager, the animation swaps the images and connects the pointer to another image. Here we have a grid. We are using here a composite design pattern. Here we only have one grid which has 55 children. These are the game objects, 55 aliens. We create a factory which generates 55 aliens for the crab, squid and octopus. In the factory, after generating all the game objects, we add them to the game object manager, we add them to the grid, we add them to the sprite batch. When we call the timer manager to add a timer event, we are adding the timer event in a sorted manner. We call the sort add, which in turn calls the sorted insert when inserting and adds them in a sorted manner. This is done because we want to achieve optimization. Now when we update the timer manager, we are passing here one more parameter as a grid. We go in the update, we take the event, and we also have a sprite box to find the sprite box, and we execute the event. We call process, which calls execute, which in turn calls the execute. We remember the animation had image holders. These are the pointer to images. When execute is called, it swaps the images and adds it back to the timer manager with the delta time. So the update also takes place in a sorted manner. Going in the update back, after this is done, we have the update for the sprite box, which updates a sprite box and which calls move. The move moves the sprite box. Also it calls the mini update. This mini update is the movement of the objects, which calls steps. This moves the objects in the x direction. So all the objects, they have their x value increased. Also we call the grid move here, so which in turn moves the grid and all the sprites all together, 55 sprites all together. So that's how animation and the movement takes place all together. And we call here the game object manager update in the final after everything has been updated using the timer manager here. And we use here a sprite batch manager for the single draw of all the sprites. That's all for our milestone.